Good morning, everyone. So, finally back from my cold, so we can make more of these silly little videos of mine. But enough about that, let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about, or rather I'm going to address a question that I got from a view, or one of my comments on one of my videos. Basically the question was, what should I focus on to, there was basically this person who was a web developer, or specifically they didn't have like a background in computer science or mathematics or anything like that, and had decided to go into web programming, which is absolutely awesome. And so the question was basically, what should I learn in order to fill in those gaps that you get as a web developer from, as opposed to being like a system level programmer or a computer scientist or something like that. And the list was basically provided to me as the follows. They asked, okay, should I go into hardware? Should I go into mathematics? Or should I go into computer science to kind of fill out my knowledge with, more things basically, so that I can be a better web programmer? And I stopped the person kind of there, and I was very flattered to have somebody ask me something like that. And it's actually a very good question, and one that I think that I did actually reply in the comments, but I also said that I was going to make a video, so here goes. I think I can answer this pretty well. So if you are telling me that you are a web programmer, then I will assume a few things. The first thing I'm going to assume is that you already know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a server-side language, and how to use a database. Those are, in my opinion, the bare bone basics. Those are beginner, without that you will not be able to do proper web programming. It is feasible that you could do it without databases, but not in any type of meaningful, really professional way, I would say. It's pretty much a hard requirement. So if those are the bare bone basics in order for you to be able to actually produce web applications, it's a fair question. Okay, what do I do next? That's at least what I took away from that. And what I think is interesting is that the perception from this person, or rather the idea that this person had in their head, was that things such as hardware and computer science and mathematics would be the next thing to learn. And I stopped them right there and I said, the fact of the matter is that, let's take hardware for example. Hardware, or basically understanding the components that make up a computer, you never use that in your daily life as a programmer. You are a software developer. Hardware only really becomes an issue or a discussion if you're selling hardware, you're building hardware, you're an engineer, you're a full-fledged engineer or something like that, or if you are running if you're running your own machines as an operations person, and you have to know what the loads and basically the specifications of each computer that you're running actually, what they have. But for a software developer, that's not, you never ever have to factor that into your daily job. I mean, most of my colleagues don't even know how to put on the printer or how to start the printer at work. So hardware is, for all intents and purposes, completely pointless for you to go in and really learn at a deep level as a software developer, especially if you're if you're a web developer. There's if you are doing embedded devices, whole different story, a whole different ball game if you're doing that. But web programmers, you never touch the hardware. You never even think about it in your daily job. So that's kind of, I'm ruling that out basically. And then the question was, okay, mathematics. And I said, yeah, mathematics it's absolutely useful, but most programmers never ever deal with math problems that are harder than basic algebra, basically high school level mathematics. It's very rare. I can tell you from myself, it's very rare that I ever have to deal with something fancier than that. And most of my colleagues we don't do that either. You may think, and I thought that this as well, that mathematics was a big part of programming. It is not. It's not a big part of it. It's actually, there's so little of it that if you have learned higher level mathematics, you will probably find that the only time you really get to use it is in very specific applications or in computer science. Which brings me to computer science. Computer science is going to teach you how a computer works and different basically algorithms for solving specific problems. And although that is very useful for you to be able to reason about problems and understanding how to approach very specific types of problems and very complicated problems, there's no guarantee that is going to make you a better software developer. Honestly, I watch a lot of different computer scientist videos and on their channels, and although they're extremely intelligent and I can see that they're very good at computer science, the code they write is absolutely horrible. Or rather, horrible is a strong word, but I mean the software that they write, it really shows that they spend a lot of time in theory, but they don't actually code all that much. They don't actually work on projects for an extended period of time. That's at least what I see. And the thing is that there are things on your list, or rather there should be things on your list that are much more important than computer science if you want to be a web developer. I can even tell you that for the most part of my career, the stuff that I studied as a when I was studying computer science, I've never used it. Some things have been relevant to solving some sort of problems, but so really only now at my current job where I actually had to use anything that's even remotely close to that type of thing. In fact, computer science is a completely it's a specific field in software development. You can be a computer scientist, and although a programmer can have use of computer science, it's not something that is all that common in your daily job if you're a web programmer. It happens, but it's to me it's kind of like I don't know. It's like playing. It's basically like learning to be a Formula 1 driver when you really only want to drive a cab. That's a strong thing to say, but just try to think of it as being it's related, but it's not the same thing. So I would say that computer science is very low on that list. But if you want, and I told them, my list of things that you should absolutely learn and probably are going to help you on a daily basis is going to be very different from what he was suggesting. And here's my list. The first and foremost thing as a web programmer that you should learn after you know these basic things is how the HTTP protocol works. In other words, do you know how headers work? Do you know what content types are, like the different media types and stuff like that? Because that's going to be very relevant for your ability to serve up content to your users. That's number one. Number two is how do you use DNS? Like how do you know how an IP address gets mapped over to something like google.com and so forth? Do you know about domains and how they work, port numbers, how these things work? That brings us to thing number three, networking. Do you understand how computers talk to each other? Those things are much more important. And then we have cloud hosting, because the thing is that just because you can put up a server with a web page on your local machine, that's a very different thing from having a production ready application that people can use on the internet. So do you know how to use something like Heroku, for example, or a hosting service? Do you know these things? If you don't, those things are much more important to you and they're going to be relevant every single day, as opposed to something like computer science that may be relevant sometimes or help your thought process. So cloud hosting is another one. Do you know how to do validation for a user? Do you know how to safely put up a password page, a login page, get that information, hash the information so that it's secured in your database, so that your user can feel secured in using your application? That's also much more important than computer science. And then you have things as sessions. Do you know what a session is? I use a session so that they can add things, for example, to a purchase cart, to a cart, so that they can buy products on your webpage. Once again, directly linked to what you do every single day, as opposed to something that you may use sometimes. And then you have file storage. Do you know what strategies there are for storing files on a file system? Because trust me, it's not just about putting files in a database. There's much more to it than that. So that's actually the list I gave my new friend, and I said, these things, although I argue that mathematics and computer science and hardware is going to be educational for you, the things that I just mentioned are 100 times more relevant every single day. It's something that you will need to know on a daily basis, as opposed to something that's just going to influence you. And I have a quote that you can find on my LinkedIn page where I say, master the skills you use every day and practice the skills you're going to need tomorrow. And the list I just gave you, that's everyday stuff. So I think that that's the first thing you should learn if you want to be a web programmer. Hopefully this was useful to you.